What's up, guys? Today we're talking about the never-ending feud between Britney Spears and her sister Jamie Lynn. Jamie just dropped her new book. Britney is calling her scum, and Jamie went on the Call Her Daddy podcast despite saying that she wanted to handle the situation in private. It's a mess, so let's get into it. So, Jamie Lynn has finally released her memoir called Things I Should Have Said, and it's causing a lot of drama. Jamie announced her book back in October during the height of her sister's conservatorship hearing. A lot of people felt like she was taking advantage of all the attention her sister was getting during the Free Britney movement and was once again leeching off her sister's struggles. At this time, we didn't really know what the book was going to entail until Jamie recently went on Good Morning America to promote her book. It became very clear that her sister Britney was the main topic of conversation in this book. She pretty much said that she was trying to protect her sister so much that it was actually to her own detriment. Jamie claims to have been clueless about the conservatorship because she was 17 and trying to raise her daughter as a teen mom. But in the same breath, she also claims that she gave Britney the resources to help her end her conservatorship. She said, "I've always been my sister's biggest supporter, so when she needed help, I set up ways to do so. Went out of my way to make sure that she had the contacts she needed to possibly go ahead and end this conservatorship and just end this all for our family." They also talked about Britney calling Jamie out for performing remixes of her songs at the Radio Disney Awards back in 2017. Britney came out on Instagram saying it hurt her deeply to see her sister do that to her while she was stuck having her dreams killed in a conservatorship. Jamie told Good Morning America that she was confused why her sister would be so upset at that when it was meant to be a tribute to honor her, and she doesn't know why it bothers her so much. She goes on to say that she felt she needed to write this book so she could finally speak out about what happened to her, which is why it's called Things I Should Have Said. As you can probably guess, that interview didn't go over so well. Here's what people had to say. It's sad she only spoke up to sell her book. Let's play the victim card over and over and over. Interesting filming location. And this person is right. The filming location was pretty interesting. This interview allegedly took place at Lou Taylor's house, aka the person who was heavily responsible and involved in Britney's conservatorship. Probably not the best place to talk about how much you care for your sister. But Britney wasn't letting Jamie get away with this one. Britney responded to Jamie Lynn on Twitter, writing, "Looked at my phone and I see that my sister did her interview to promote her book. I watched it with 104 fever. It was actually kind of nice having a fever so high because I had to surrender to not caring. The two things that did bother me that my sister said was how my behavior was out of control. She was never around me much 15 years ago at that time. So why are you even talking about that? Unless she wants to sell a book at my expense. Really?" Then where the lady mentioned, "Why did she accuse you of doing remixes to her songs? I know it may sound like a silly thing to most people, but I wrote a lot of my songs and my sister was the baby. She never had to work for anything. Everything was always given to her. If you were me, you might understand asking for 13 years for remixes to go into a small venue show and on tours. 13 years later, they assign me as the mother of all, heart of gold. Britney sitting there seeing a 15-minute performance of everything I have ever wanted. But see, I always was the bigger person. They all got to do it and play me. And I always sat there and took it. But see, now it's a joke. The last thing I would ever do is ask for what was just given to her. So yes, they did ruin my dreams. I do remember asking my sister why she did that when she knew I was waiting to change my show, and her only words were, 'Well, it wasn't my idea.' Hope your book does well, Jamie Lynn." Everyone was so happy that Britney was actually standing up for herself and finally said something to her sister. Jamie was obviously getting a ton of backlash, and people were vowing to never purchase anything from Jamie. Jamie responded on Instagram, writing, "The last thing I want to be doing is this, but here we are. It's hard to see these posts as I know the world also feels. I just wish her well. Brit, I am always here. You know behind the scenes I have always been here. It's becoming exhausting when conversations and texts we have in private don't match what you post on social media. I know you're going through a lot and I never want to diminish that, but I also can't diminish myself. Quite frankly, the things being said are absolutely not the truth, and I have to clarify that. Because now it's getting harder for me to rationalize to my oldest daughter why our family continues to get threats, as a result of their aunt's vague and accusatory post. Especially when we know she could tell the truth and put an end to all of it in 1 second if she wanted to. Sadly, after a lifetime of staying silent, I have come to realize that this isn't going to be a reality, and I may have to set the record straight myself in order to protect mine and my family's well-being. That being said, I hate to burst my sister's bubble, but my book is not about her. I can't help that I was born to Spears too, and that some of my experiences involve my sister. I've worked hard since before I was even a teenager, and I've built my career in spite of just being someone's little sister. There's no sides, and I don't want drama, but I'm speaking my truth to heal my traumas, so I can close this chapter and move forward. And I wish my sister could do the same. No matter what comes, I will always love my big sister. It's time to put an end to the unhealthy chaos that has controlled my life for so long. Once again, Britney wasn't backing down, and she replied to Jamie Lynn on Twitter, writing, "Jamie Lynn, congrats babe. You've stooped to a whole new level of low. I've never been around you ever with a knife, or would I even think to do such. The only knife I ever saw you with at home was cutting the biggest pieces of squash I ever seen in my life, and it was way too big for me to cut. So please, please stop with these crazy lies for Hollywood books. Now and only now, I do know only a scum person would make up such things about someone. I'm actually very confused about you making that up because it's honestly not like you at all. Around kids? Jamie Lynn, seriously, come on. Congrats on introducing your older sister to the concept of getting low, lower, lowest, because you win on that one, babe. Yikes. It seems like most people agree that the issue isn't Jamie releasing a book talking about her own life experience. It's the fact that she's talking about Britney and her trauma and making a profit from it. If Jamie just released this book and Britney wasn't even mentioned it once, no one would be giving this book any attention. Jamie knew what she was doing by mentioning her sister and making the book centered around her sister's struggles with fame. And I mean, even if Jamie's experience does involve Britney just got out of a conservatorship. The fact that her sister is releasing a book telling Britney's experience before she's even had a chance to settle back into normal life is just such poor timing. Someone even did a count of how many times Jamie mentioned Britney in her book, and it's shocking. They tweeted, "My book isn't about Britney, yet you mentioned her 192 times and the word sister 156 times in your 240-page long book. Also, why is she telling Britney not to argue with her on a public platform? Yet she thinks it's okay to expose Britney on a public platform, her book, and profit?" Well, Jamie responded to all the backlash on Instagram, writing, "Britney, just call me. I have attempted many times to speak to you directly and handle this privately like sisters should, but you still choose to do everything on a public platform. In the meantime, please stop continuing the narrative that I haven't been there for you or that I'm making things up. I'm happy to share how many times I've reached out to you, supported you, and tried to help you. This is embarrassing and has to stop. Love you." So let me get this straight. Let's handle this privately like sisters should, but also let me go on the Call Her Daddy podcast real quick. That's right. The night before her book was released, Jamie Lynn went on the Call Her Daddy podcast, and Alex promoted it using Britney Spears' name.
Let's get into it. Okay. You have a text message that clears your name from your sister. Can you pull out your phone and read that recent text from Britney?
Do I have my phone?
Hold on, your bigger seat. That seat right here.
She says to me,
As you can guess, people are so mad at this. Why is Alex Cooper even giving Jamie a platform to use Britney's name to promote her book on? Alex just signed a $60 million deal with Spotify. She could do so much better than this. Alex just had Colton Underwood on the show, which also got a ton of backlash, and now she's having Jamie on. A lot of people are saying that she's doing this because she knows it's gonna get clicks. She knows E! News and Us Weekly will be talking about her and driving traffic to her podcast. Alex stretched the interview over 2 parts, and even though it was teased with Jamie clearing her name, part 1 had nothing to do with that. In part 1, Jamie talked about growing up with a famous sister and how it affected her. She said when she was 11, she started to notice change in her sister. Jamie claimed that Britney started to display destructive behavior similar to her father. But being a kid, she didn't have the courage to speak out. She said Britney was trying to escape her family, and Jamie went from being her everything and her center of the universe to that changing. Jamie and Alex also talked about the day Britney shaved her head. She said she just got home from cheerleading and her friends went on the computer and they instantly saw the headline about Britney. Jamie said she tried to act like it didn't bother her, but it did, and she had to deal with it alone because her parents were with Britney. At one point in the interview, Jamie started breaking down and said she was never allowed to have her own voice or narrative, and not because her parents and her team were trying to protect her brand. It was because they never wanted to paint Britney in a bad light. She said she now feels like she needs to use her voice and speak out about what happened to her and teach her kids to do the same. The shocking text that was teased in the trailer doesn't even come until part 2, and that won't be out till like Wednesday. Alex is definitely trying to stretch this podcast as much as possible, and people are really disappointed in her. Here's what people had to say. Embarrassing. You'd think that with a $60 million Spotify deal, you wouldn't have to scrape the barrel and give an influencer such a massive platform and benefit off the situation. But hey, girls supporting girls, right? Fitting. Why even give her a platform? Anything for views, I guess. Who advised Alex to do this? Like, yes, this interview will get a lot of attention, but it also goes against the girl power brand the podcast is trying to identify with. The publicity is not worth the disappointment of a loyal fan base. As for Jamie, at this point, it's not shocking. Jamie claimed that she wanted to handle her issues with her sister in private, yet she goes on one of the biggest podcasts to air everything out just to get promo for her new book. The other day, TMZ broke the news that Jamie Lynn wasn't going on a book tour. They wrote, Jamie Lynn Spears took a hard pass on doing a nationwide tour to promote her new book because she's not in it for money. So say sources connected to her. When in reality, it should say that she's not doing a book tour because she's not the public's favorite person right now. Jamie might get some people buying her book because of the whole Britney drama, but no one is gonna line up for a book tour to meet and greet Jamie Lynn. Jamie knew what she was doing promoting this book using her sister's name. Britney knows it, the public knows it, and Jamie knows it. But what do you guys think about this entire situation? Do you think Alex Cooper is in the wrong for giving Jamie such a massive platform to promote her book on using Britney's name? Or are you not really taking sides between the two sisters?